Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Lauren Dubritz, and I am the PR and Events Manager at Jewelers of America. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the latest episode of My Next Question, which is National Jeweler and Jewelers of America's newly co-branded webinar series. Today's session is hosted by Ashley Davis, Senior Fashion Editor at National Jeweler, and Amanda Gizzi, Director of PR and Events at Jewelers of America. Before I turn it over to the host to get the webinar started, I just wanted to let all of our attendees know that if you guys have a question, you can type it into the Zoom Q&A box. I will be back on at the end of the discussion to share those questions. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be available on the National Jeweler and Jewelers of America website shortly. Now I'll turn it over to the host and I'll be back to field any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. We are so excited to be with you today to talk about our favorite trends. Right, Ashley?
Yes, so excited to have everybody joining us today. Trends is such an interesting topic because I feel like people look at it as kind of like a blessing or a curse. Trends for some can feel really limiting to designers who don't want their creativity to be inhibited in any way. But I think having a really healthy attitude of trends as tools and just to look at trends just as a way to guide your unique voice can really help people harness them into something that's useful for their businesses, whether they're designers or retailers. And we have a lot of cool ones to talk about today.
Yeah, one of the things I always remind people when we're talking about trends is not to be scared by them. Exactly what you said, Ashley. It's like for some people, they hear trends and they think trendy and they're like, wait, I designed fine jewelry. I don't want it to be trendy. I don't want it to become obsolete next season. And I think with jewelry, it's so different from maybe fashion trends because there is a little bit more shelf life to the trends that we are talking about, and it is open to so much interpretation, and so many of the trends sort of coexist together and there's crossovers. So there is a lot of room for personal interpretation, as you mentioned, Ashley, and that's one of the things I really do love about trends too. And for retailers, as you're looking at the lens of how you're going to buy, it's also about how you merchandise your store and how you promote the trends and how you use social to really become a trend destination too for your own customers. So there's a lot of ways to really think about jewelry trends from manufacturing all the way through merchandising.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that there's no need to jump on every trend. I think a good outlook is to adopt the ones that you like, whether you're selling, designing, or both. And then just use certain trends as a way to showcase your personal style. And I feel like the jewelry that we're going to show today, like as examples of trends, are really good examples of people just interpreting something through their own lens and through their own design signatures so that their voice is never going away, like for the sake of a trend.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point about how to even talk about this webinar is we show examples here today, and we're going to talk and put some great examples up on the screen, but these are no way meant to be a guide for what somebody else should do. Instead, it's just for us to show really how each brand can take a trend, as Ashley just said, and make it distinctively their own. So you should never go out trying to copy a trend of something else you've seen, but instead think about what is your vision, what does your brand look like, what is your collections, how does it all fit together, and how can you make the trend your own? So it's a great point. And as we do work our way through the trends, you'll start to see some, immediately you can identify the brands because they've stayed true to their own voice, but the trend fits in so beautifully and cohesively because they've selected the right trends for their brand, exactly what Ashley said. So, all right, let's kick it off. We're going to talk about the first trend, what we call our trend to watch, which is inlay. So Ashley, talk to us about inlay before I get into our first example.
Yeah, so inlay is one example of a really larger overarching trend, which is color. And obviously that can be interpreted in so many different ways. So this is one specific way that I'm just seeing so much more color than I used to see a few years ago. And so inlay has been a really interesting one because there's actually a practical element to the trend, which is you can create a bigger piece or like a big swath of material with a stone that's maybe more accessible and affordably priced rather than just having tons of gold, which is so expensive and has been for quite some time. So I kind of love that because the designs that like we're going to show as examples of inlay, they don't look at all practical. Like they're colorful and sunny, but there is actually a practical element, as we all know, who those of us who work in this industry, we know that it's actually kind of a great tool for being able to make larger pieces. So one brand that is fairly new called Mason and Books, for them, gemstone inlay is like a really big part of their story. The designer Jamie loves color and loves colored gemstones, and she'll have certain styles with each piece kind of one of a kind just because of the gems that she's selected for that style, even though the style she then replicates over and over. But that's a huge part of her story, and just playing with the gemstone combinations, which is really fun. And so she does them in different ways that are kind of like riffs on childhood motifs, like a heart shape, and like a little, her take on a ladybug is like one of her signatures, and bows, and like lots of really fun, whimsical designs.
It's sort of a micro trend in itself, isn't it, Ashley? That sort of whimsy with our fine jewelry.
Totally. And that is something, it's funny, like as we were making this presentation, like I was just finding so much crossover for all these styles. So it's kind of like a lot of them like are touching on a few things.
Yeah, I love that too.
And just hearts in general, like so many heart shapes now.
I know, coming back from the Centurion and the AGTA shows, I was like on heart overload, and I don't know if it was right at the cusp of Valentine's Day that I was seeing more, but they're everywhere, and I've never considered myself a heart person. And I know so many people who say the same thing. I'm not a heart person, but I'm loving all the hearts because I think they're fresh, and the use of things like inlay, like this pendant here, just make it feel not so formal and not so dated. They're really fresh designs. Yeah.
No, I feel the exact same way. It's people are doing interesting things to them where you don't feel like it's just a traditional kind of one note motif. Yeah. So I totally agree with that. And I was not in Arizona, so that's really fun to hear that like hearts are still really big, and like with people shopping so much for the future in Arizona, that's a really good indicator of where they're
absolutely.
Yeah, so this is like the bow that she does and the ladybugs, like very whimsical and sweet and kind of
and
like.
I love the contrast here, Ashley, of the inlay with the faceted gemstones. Yes. So it really shows how color can be used so differently, but how they can play together.
And that's something that I just wasn't as used to seeing a few years ago. And I feel like I'm just seeing this experimentation with the colored gemstones so much right now.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great point.
Okay, so Soralina, they do a really different take on the gemstone inlay, and it's like a little more elegant, a little more mature. And these signet rings have become like a huge brand staple for them. I'm sure they're one of their best-selling styles, and now they make like a pendant version as well, and they put like, they do tons of different stones, and then they'll do like your initials or a different motif. But you know, what a great way to like liven up the signet style that we all know and love, but it's like a totally new feeling with all of the color.
Definitely.
Okay, so a really, and just to show that, you know, this can go like a lot further, Jackie Aish does really fun, crazy things with her inlay. And I like it because she'll do things that are very in line with like her bohemian sort of like 60s and 70s LA aesthetic, and even like making these like inlay mosaic pieces that like they feel like pretty hippie-ish, except then they're, you know, surrounded in gold and diamonds, so they're luxurious and upscale, but it's a really fun take on sort of like elevated hippie jewelry.
Yeah.
And Rihanna's been wearing the alien pendants, so they have that stamp of approval. And like,
so yeah, there's no better
so
sample of
fun.
approval right now than Rihanna, for sure.
Yes.
And I love that it's so true to her brand. Like you look at it, you immediately know whose necklace this is, and I love that.
Exactly. And I think that's the perfect example of, you know, just playing with it and, you know, doing your own thing, following your own vision. That's really, really fun.
Absolutely. And you know, turquoise is another stone that just keeps, you know, holding strong in the trend space. And I think it's one of those where we always like put it aside and we never think about it being too trendy, but to see it paired in such a luxe way with the gold surrounded by diamonds is also neat too.
I love how turquoise pairs with other gemstones too, like emerald and like different kind of gems in the blue and green color family.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my God, this one is so fun. So this I saw on JA's Instagram because Retrovi is nominated for a gem award this
Yes,
month.
exactly.
I saw this ring, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool, because in the last, like literally only the last year, I've been seeing some brands that are really layering the inlay. And like I'm seeing a lot of that with like tiger's eye and people like experimenting with just having layers of it in a piece. Like one person who's doing a lot of this is Orly Marcel. She has some like really exciting new inlay pieces, and it's like, so this is sort of like the trend on steroids where you're just like, let's just do like a bunch of inlay. But then I love how Kirsty from Retrovi did it here, because she's like incorporating it with this signature ring style that she does for just like this fun pop that's so unexpected.
Yeah, definitely. And with the different color palettes too, you know, the mixing of the 4 different color gemstones with these gorgeous, you know, huge diamonds too, in such a way that's so signature for Retrovi.
Totally.
Beautiful.
Oh my God. Okay. These Emily P. Wheeler has so many variations of this, and she is really like the queen of mixing the gems and creating these really unexpected color palettes and unexpected combinations. Like when I used to think of inlay, it would be like, okay, some people have some inlay in their collection and like it's always lapis, it's always malachite, it's always turquoise. And now people like get creative. Like, I don't know, I just feel like there's this renewed love of colored gems right now for designers, because there's like the joy of the hunt for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Sourcing these stones. I mean, who would not like love to be doing that all the time?
Yeah.
And so it's like now I just see so many different stones, and I always feel like I'm pretty good at like recognizing a stone, and people now stump me all the time. They tell me something I've never heard of. And it's just like so exciting.
Definitely. I mean, walking around, of course, in Tucson, you can't go 4 feet without running into a brand new gemstone that you've never heard of. And to see a stone that's so incredibly unique and different, and know that it's like such a small little, you know, came out of a small little mine somewhere that all of a sudden is like, you know, huge. To be in this industry for as long as we have, to see as much as we have, and to still be stumped on gemstones is exciting, because
to be like, oh, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, and like now people are discovering like, oh, customers like respond to the different gemstones. It's not just about, oh, if I don't buy a diamond, like maybe I'll get like a sapphire piece. Like it's so much more, and obviously that's so exciting.
Yeah, and inlay's nice too, because it's you know, thinner slices. We don't have to worry about the huge, you know, you can work with a smaller amount of material to have a big bold look too with color.
Totally. I know. So I think it'll stay for a while. I hope it does.
Yeah, I definitely can see this being a long-term trend because of the obsession that the industry has with color right now. And it is a fresh, modern way to use color. And to, to pair cut gems with inlay for sure, and mixed diamonds and
Totally.
inlay.
I love that point. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of color, so
Enamel.
yes, we want to touch on enamel as well. So this is an interesting one because I feel like maybe 3 years ago, enamel kind of hit its peak where enamel just had such a resurgence that it was like every designer's new collection 3 years ago like had an enamel element if they like weren't using it before. So I think we've calmed down from that peak. And now, but it's still very much on trend.
Yeah.
And it's just like kind of a continuous part of many designers' collections. And there's still like really exciting things happening with it. And I think when you talk about kind of the resurgence of enamel right now, you have to start with Melissa Kay, who has been really a leader in her color. Because definitely I think the thing today is kind of like mix your own custom shade so that you're really like telling your own unique story. And she has been very adventurous in that, and made a big splash when she debuted this neon enamel collection a few years ago. And I remember being surprised because of course I loved it, but when you cover jewelry, you love things that are bold and editorial. You don't know precisely how that will sell and translate to the everyday consumer. But all of these retailers were buying it, and it's continued to be part of the collection. So clearly it translated to consumers. Like people felt moved by the color. They didn't feel afraid of a luxury purchase that was like really bold and not neutral. And it really resonated with people. So
yeah, I love the idea of this fun find too. It's like it doesn't have to be neutral. It doesn't have to go with everything for consumers to want to take a risk and want to wear something that's personal to them. And this huge pop of color not only does it make a statement, but it also, first of all, looks so gorgeous with every skin tone too. So I love this bright neon from Melissa Kay for sure.
I totally agree. And then she has like a lot of pastels now. And I've just seen so many brands that are doing a great job of incorporating the color. And again, this is a way of like, being colorful without having like a bunch of really expensive gemstones. I mean, it still is economical in terms of jewelry making. So State Property, this image was really exciting to me because I think I took it off, like an Instagram post, but this collection is brand new. Like they just showed it to buyers. It's State Property. And they're an example of a little more classic of a color palette. Like they've had lots of black and white enamel in the past and now have like this bright green. But I think it just really goes to show that bold enamel is here to stay. If a designer loves enamel, then they're keeping it as part of their collection and as part of their brand identity. And a lot of people just gravitate to working with enamel like over working with colored gemstones.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think there could be a clue to what the rest of the trend presentation is going to look like. There's a lot of innuendos here with this picture, so I wish we could keep it up on the side so we can continue to come back to it, because there's so many elements in this photo that tie into other trends, which always makes trend, when we talk about trends, really fun. I love the use of like the black enamel too, and pairing that with the bright green. And it's great to see how these pieces can tie in your entire jewelry collection too. So as a consumer, how can they incorporate enameled pieces and into their layering, into their everyday jewelry wardrobe?
Totally. And this is from Threads, by the way. I love their styling. I think, and they're always on kind of the verge of trends, but I mean, they're a retailer, so
Right.
I find them a really good indicator of what people are buying, and especially like at a really high luxury price point.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
the Hermes bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like one designer who I actually didn't mention here, but or who I didn't include a picture of, is like Salim Muzanar. I think that's a good example of someone who uses the guilloche engraving technique with
Yeah.
enamel over it. You know, that's just, it's a brand signature, and nothing about it feels trendy.
Right.
It's just like this very elegant kind of like a really classic technique, having the guilloche and highlighting the pattern with a kind of translucent enamel. And he just introduces like new shades as he sees fit, and it's not trendy at all, but it's just one way that he works with color at the moment.
Yeah.
And then this brand Savalina, they're based out of Dubai, and they just have some really amazing colors. And I love their custom colors. And I think it's like you said, Amanda, it's that fine, fun feel.
Definitely. With the earring, I love the little diamond mini hoop with the pink. It's a nice way to incorporate enamel in a way that's not a bracelet.
Yeah,
Too, is to show what earrings can look like.
totally.
And I love this Buddha Mama piece too. Buddha Mama obviously does an amazing job with so many bright, talk about a company that can do so much with color and having fun and big, bold pieces, not afraid to take risk. And I love the use of enamel here, just one of the many pieces that they have in their collection. And again, just that idea of like layering with they have every color, obviously, from black and white, this black and white color palette, all the way up to the, to bold color as well. And again,
It's
with the
nice to
20
know that
karat.
there's a customer for their like very maximalist, joyful pieces.
Definitely. Yeah, and it so suits them as designers, it's very much on brand. Okay, so that takes us to this last piece, this Theophanel ring, which I love this use of enamel. Obviously the different, having this intricate leaf pattern with the center enamel as well, I just think is so gorgeous.
Yeah, and it feels classic. I mean, it like, and because every trend, it's trends are funny because it's not that a technique is new or even a color is new. It's just that maybe it hasn't been commonly used recently. It hasn't been widely used recently, and it comes back. So, in this sense, it has like a very ancient feel in the pattern, which really goes to show that, and thank goodness, because we want our jewelry to be timeless. It's not seasonal.
Yeah, definitely. And that emerald green, as you just mentioned, like it's one of those colors where it feels strange. I just did the color trend for National Jeweler about the shows, and it feels strange to talk about emerald as a trend because it's one of those, is it a trend? Well, it's a trend of the moment because we're talking about it more, and there's this resurgence, this relove for emerald colored stones, not just emeralds, but emerald colors. And this enamel is another great example of how emerald green is sort of one of our top colors to watch.
Totally.
So that takes us to waves, taking us out of the geometric pattern that we've been obsessed with for so long, right, Ash?
Yeah, so this is taking a step back from like looking at kind of what's happening in color to include everything, including jewelry that's primarily diamonds and gold. This trend is all about shape. I feel like several years ago when I got into jewelry, like about a decade ago, there were a lot of designers who were doing really cool riffs on like Art Deco motifs, which that will always be one of my favorite things, like Art Deco and those bold shapes and like the really great like geometric graphic shapes. But I have noticed in the last year or two that I'm just seeing all of these like wavy organic lines that are really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And this, my personal theory is that it comes from the world of home decor, because that just became a huge thing, and product design became like, it was all about the squiggly lines and sort of these more like fun abstract shapes, and like candles that look like blobs, and like all of these wavy mirrors, and kind of the 1980s Memphis design movement and all of this. And I just have a hunch that that just like trickled into jewelry a little bit. This brand Ondine is one of my favorites. They just launched a few years ago. And they came out of the gate with all of these sort of like waving lines. It feels very like wave inspired, ocean inspired. What's really cool about this line is that the pieces are articulated. So there's all of this great movement as you move, and like it just feels really good.
I know, I'm kind of going like this as you're talking, because I'm like
Right?
envisioning them moving.
Like it just feels so great. And here I am.
Yeah, they feel good when they go up against your face.
Totally. Like it, but it's just, it's like that feel, that more like relaxed feel. And
Yeah.
there is something about like, as things have trended towards a more casual approach to luxury, like incorporate luxury into your everyday,
Yeah.
this trend really feels like it exemplifies that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it's a little more maybe like approachable than like a diamond Riviere necklace, or like a, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you and I probably aren't the best people to talk about, because I feel like we'd wear this to the grocery store.
Yes.
Like tank, black tank, pair of jeans, pair of sneaks. I wear those for sure.
But it just doesn't feel so serious, even though
Agreed.
it's very elegant.
And the movement helps that, it's got an approachability to it because it is soft lines and the curves, definitely. And this necklace here.
Yes, this brand called Isles, who I reached out to them once. I've been like meaning to do a story on them and have yet to like connect with them. I'm so intrigued by them. They're in the UAE, and they have all of these like amazing wavy line chokers and all of these wavy rings. It's like very girly and again, very fun. They're all gold and diamond pieces. There are pieces with like pops of color. They even have enamel as well, but there's just like a real exuberance. It's almost like a Rococo painting in a piece of jewelry. That's just very fun.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it a lot more, like you said, it's very feminine, but at the same time, it's got this like, I guess it's just the length of the necklace that too just is not quite a choker, but it sits on the collar. It's got a lot of great movement to it.
And we could have definitely done that as a trend in its own. Like I feel that like 15 to 16 inch length is so big, and whether it's with like some dangling charms, some dangling gems, like a little diamond, but necklaces like that with movement are sort of like that perfect base layer of jewelry, or like the only thing you need to wear day to night. Like I feel like that style is like super important in a collection.
And it also goes with every neckline. So whatever you're wearing, you can wear with it.
Exactly.
You're not constantly having to fight over where it falls within the shirt or the dress or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I love this bangle.
I know. We love this designer. She was based in New York. Now she's in Palm Beach. I wrote about her recently. But she is very much like a less is more kind of designer. She's really intentional and particular about her silhouettes. And she came out in the last year, like with this wavy line. And I think because I've seen her wear these vintage, like wavy Tiffany & Co. bangles, like Elsa Peretti bangles. And I'm sure that's part of the inspiration. And it's just the way she does it is very elegant. And I think it's important because when there's like showing a lot of like really fun jewelry, and it's important to like of course, serve the classic customer. So
Yeah.
I think this is a good take on a wavy trend done in such a classic and elegant way.
Absolutely. I love the texture to it too, Ashley. I feel like the lines within the waves are so meaningful too. It just adds such a depth and a richness to the bracelet or to the cuff. So it's not just like the shape is wavy, but it's got the texture built in as well.
Yes, and I don't remember if I put the image for this. Gemma Wynn, as I was noticing this, Gemma Wynn introduced an anniversary collection with like tons of wavy styles, like wavy stocking rings. I don't know, I just find them very flattering. And oh, Dine, that's such a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's something looks different variations of this ring are a little wavy.
Yeah, if you turn it the other direction, it has such a different look to it. The green and
Okay,
the
I
orange,
think that's what it is. Because
the
here
up versus the down.
looks very symmetrical, which I guess it's symmetrical, but it's also wavy. Like, again, it's just about like, it's like, I really admire designers because it's like, how do you reinvent the wheel every time? It's not like we're creating a new style of jewelry. Like, how do you take like a classic gold band and make it yours? And it's like, these minute differences make it so wildly different. Just the angles of it, where you've placed the stones, which stones you've put. But I think this is a really beautiful example too.
Yeah, I love how you can just take a shape and have so much freedom to do something different with a simple shape, like a wave, to your point. It's like how this ring flat, you know, would be beautiful, but to see it curved like in this way, in this distinct way is very new. Like I feel like I haven't seen before.
And great for stacking.
Yeah. And I love these Robinson Pelham earrings with literally like it feels like a wave is crashing with these earrings. I tried these on at Couture, I think over in June. And I love the way that they sit on the ear too. They're just very they just got such great movement to them, and with the pink and then the blue gemstone in the middle, and that actually comes out, so you can put a diamond stud in, or it can be the blue sapphire. So the stud itself comes out to make it a little bit more interesting as well. But I love the shape of these earrings.
Love that. Oh, another great example.
Yes, this Beck jewels. I love again, this great movement to this ring. It's a thick, bold, chunky style. But because it's halo, it's not so, you know, it's got the hollow inside, so not halo, but the hollow inside. So it's not so heavy, but we'll sort of touch on this trend in a little bit as well. But I love this example of this wave from Beck Jewels. Yeah,
so sculptural.
Yeah, definitely. So then that takes us to cocktail jewels, taking us out of our COVID loungewear and back into cocktail jewels in a way that's not so formal, right, Ashley?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was thinking to myself about how I always used to hear the term right hand ring.
Yes.
And people never say it anymore.
No, right.
They used to say that a lot, like a right hand ring. It was like, it was important to like delineate, like, this is like a cocktail jewel. Like,
this is for me. This is my ring.
Yeah, right. This is for me. And now, like, I think it's probably a positive that term you don't really hear it that much, because I think overall we're embracing jewelry as a whole. More of that, we're like, no, like it's for us. It's not just to mark one life event, but like there's so many possibilities to it. So one thing that I've noticed is, instead of like the traditional, like a cocktail ring as like your right hand ring, what have you, is kind of the emergence of what I'll call the cocktail jewel. And that is just it's really very basic. It's just about like celebrating a big gemstone, like a solitaire, whether as a necklace or as a ring. But there's a very like exuberant feel to the style that for me, it's a little bit like a mid-century, like like Mad Men type of feel, like a little Palm Beach, a little Palm Springs. And it's just having like a really bold, like Ariel Ratner calls this style her power pinky. It's like that
I
bold
love it.
statement piece. And
Yeah.
then it's for each designer, it's just about making the setting their own. And I guess it does really speak to like how big colored gemstones are right now, especially for like independent designers, and like the hunt for like that special stone. And then just having like that perfect setting around it.
Yeah.
But like this jewel is like, it's like $4,000 retail, like at the most. It might even be a little bit less, but like
That's such a big look.
yeah, it's a big stone.
Yeah, it's a big stone. It's a big bold look, and it's the true definition of what we always consider the cocktail ring, which was so formal, and people felt like they couldn't wear it for daytime, and that's just not how we dress today. So it's like to wear this cocktail jewel, whether it's a necklace, a big huge pair of earrings with a center gem, or a ring like this, it's your everyday piece still. Somehow it's like you can wear it during the day, but it's significant and it's celebrating color.
Yeah. And I know it might sound a little somebody was asking, what is the gemstone? I cannot remember. I feel like it's a tourmaline because she uses tons of tourmaline. I have it somewhere, but I'm sorry, I actually can't remember for sure right now. But this
We can look it up and get it to you for sure. I almost put all the gemstones in the notes for us, Ashley, because as we go through this, it's always one of those where it's like trying to remember the gemstone.
I actually should have had that. I really should have.
I think everyone will forgive us, and I promise we'll get it to you if you really need to know for sure.
And then I think, who did we have next?
So next we have this Jamela. Now Jamela, I love the colors that Jamela puts together, but I love this singular necklace.
I know, and it sounds a little silly to be like, well, a colored gemstone like solitaire style, is that really a trend? But yes, like all of a sudden I'm just seeing a bunch of brands that they'll like debut this whole line of like Jamela. Like I feel like this is the cocktail necklace. Like it's a big gem. One of their signatures is like this really cool chunky ball chain. So but it is that like a big gem or diamond. It can be a diamond. It's just obviously we've gotten into very expensive territory when we're doing a big stone for that. But then just having like a really cool chunky gold setting.
Yeah, agree.
And I love that it's not just a cocktail ring. Like, yeah, here's a pendant from Gemma Wynn. And so they love like a Victorian star. That's something that they kind of bring in and out of their collection, you know, that antique motif. So that's like a spin on it for them. And this like, you know, big hollow domed pendant that's like a big statement piece.
Yeah, with this juicy, what I can believe to be a Priva. It's beautiful.
Yes, for no, I think you're definitely right on that one. And then
sorry, my screen just froze. There we go. Yes. Graziella. Talk about, she had so many pieces at the show at Centurion that I was just dying over. But I love the use of this big, gorgeous emerald cut gemstone and the setting that she has here that truly just allows it to shine, but not to minimize the three-sided diamond shank on this ring, because it also just brings like everything together to like just truly celebrate this gorgeous gemstone. So to me, this is like the epitome of like a cocktail jewel.
Totally. And I love that it's like her take on the cocktail jewel is like less gold, more bling.
Right. Exactly.
I love that.
Very much in her signature style.
Totally.
So taking us into chunky gold.
Yes. So I have just found so many designers in the past several years kind of putting their own particular stamp on chunky gold settings. And I think today, like people are just appreciating metal a lot more. And then certain brands who like really embrace that, they'll have like I mean, they'll go all out. They won't just have like one signature chunky gold setting. They'll have like 8 of them. Like Brent Neal's one of those. Like she has like her petal setting. These earrings are from her petal collection. So she just kind of like, you know, plays with her silhouettes and fine tunes things. They all like, there is a whimsical, playful element to her pieces.
Yeah.
Jessica McCormick. Oh my gosh. So the reason I chose this image was is because of the rain, like us looking at it on the screen at the person's right index finger.
Yes.
Like this it's kind of like an eternity band. I mean,
With the bubbly.
Yeah, it's just a bubbly setting. It's like, even if it's not the chunkiest piece, it's just like adding chunkiness, like where we wouldn't expect to see it, just having that kind of take on that. And this picture actually I love because like I feel like this woman's she's like an influencer. Her engagement ring on her finger, I don't believe is by Jessica McCormick, and if it is, it's just like she selected like the diamond she wanted. It's definitely not like her design signature, but I feel like half of the world right now wants like that tiny gold setting. They want like the big diamond on the very tiny setting.
And the retailers are over it, by the way, because they're constantly having to fix it.
Yeah, or they want the chunkiest gold setting,
Yeah.
or like this woman, she likes both. And
Yeah, no, I love
a
that.
little mix of both.
And I love that example of how when you first mentioned chunky gold as a trend, my head went somewhere different, but seeing this piece really helped me kind of truly envision what this trend is and what it can mean, because of just that little bit of added gold, or extra wide gold bezel, for example, how it can really transform a piece of jewelry. So I loved this example as well.
Exactly. I think it's like, maybe chunky isn't even the right word. It's like metal prominent. It's just where it's like not just about the diamond. It's like the metal is really part of the story.
Yeah.
Now this is obviously it's a rendering, but
right.
I have seen the real jewel too. This was just like a better picture.
Yeah.
I love this woman. She's in LA. I can't pronounce her name because it's like not Johnny and it's like not Joni. It's like somewhere in between. But she's so talented and she's a bespoke designer. And she makes just tons of custom, tons of bridal. But she does a wonderful job of communicating how her work is made to order. And it's funny because a lot of people work in that model, but she does such a good job of communicating like how there is very little waste, like how everything is like done for you. She's not creating a bunch of stock beforehand.
Right.
I don't know, she just like, everything about her I think is really interesting to watch, from her designs to like even the way she talks about them.
Definitely.
Lindsay Scoggins, another.
I love this ring.
So good. And again, like this is such a different take on a lot of gold, but this is like her unique vision of it.
And I also love it as like, it's obviously not a halo, but it's the idea of like adding something significant around a center stone that's no longer just a diamond halo. Like this is like something, adding the metal makes it feel like such a different take on what could be considered this like halo trend, which is now like moving away. And we are seeing a lot more of this like gold surrounding a stone, which is cool.
Single stone. I mean, they're like incomparable when it comes to like every engagement ring I've ever seen from them. Like they're antique stones and their settings. But again, like I've also seen them move to chunkier gold settings. Like even the prongs are like sort of chunky.
They're beefy prongs for sure. That's why I like the term chunky. I'm here for it. It's like beefy, chunky. You don't usually talk about it with gold like that. So I'm here for it. All right, taking us into two stone.
This one is so funny because when people started talking about two stone rings in light of like Ariana Grande and Megan Fox, I was like, okay, this is like a little flash in the pan. Like, I don't think people are literally gonna like want their own two-stone ring. I was totally wrong. Like, everybody has a two-stone ring in their collection now.
I know.
And people like, and I do see like private jewelers I follow, like different people will like show the two-stone ring that they just made for a client.
Definitely.
And it's
Well, it
so
has so
really
many, it can have so many different meanings for people too, as you know, whether it's birthstones or your favorite stones or diamonds or a diamond and a gemstone, it just takes on such personality this way too. But you're right. And even many years ago, when a retailer launched like two-stone diamond rings, I remember thinking there's no way people are going to buy that. And then now all of a sudden here we are, and this trend is like turned into something so massive.
Yeah. Darius, absolutely exquisite with like this very, I mean, I'm not sure if the waxes are hand carved to make this ring, but they look like it. And just that very sort of like antique feel.
Yeah, very much.
I know we're getting, I want to
Darius.
make sure we have enough time for questions.
Yep.
So maybe we can.
So let's take us quickly through these. So uniform object. I love that they're not
a different take.
Totally, so not side by side. Emily P. Wheeler.
So fun. And I love this because this is like very much like not an engagement ring. Like, I personally really want this ring for myself.
Well, it's our heart center enamel. What's not to love?
I know. It's so joyful. Oh my God. But I want this ring even more, but like, this is very not in my budget. Bryony Raymond, she's so cool. And I absolutely love this, like this take on a bezel being like above the ring. Like, it's just so juicy. It just highlights the different shapes of the stones. I love that.
It's got your chunky metal on the outside. See, it's all coming back together. This AG Gems, I love the vertically stacked, and then almost like with two additional diamonds on the sides of your two stones. You've got two stones flanking your two stones, which I like, with
So
AG
cool.
Gems with these insanely gorgeous stones. And then the Scamushian, and I love the different shapes here and how they sit on the side of the ring. I feel like we're seeing a lot of this still happening with the rings kind of coming up and not sitting on the finger, but almost in between the fingers, which I like too. So let's get through future nostalgia.
Yes. So this is just a bit about people who are playing with elements that look futuristic and playing with elements that have like a childhood connotation. Why they're grouped together is because there just tends to be a lot of overlap. I don't know why, but I have found that with different brands who embrace this. So like Era, they're an Italian brand, but a good example is like they're futuristic in the sense that they love their like exciting rhodium plating, and always having
tons of
a really different color palette than anyone else. And then they'll introduce just like a really like silly, you know, thing like a smiley face.
Yeah.
Childhood-esque.
Your minty diamonds.
Now they're more futuristic. This is a line that does just lab-grown diamonds, which I think is exciting to watch since very few people pigeonhole themselves like that. But they have the layered ceramics, so just a really different take on color and materials.
Yeah.
Alina, so this is sort of like the childhood take on the future.
Yeah,
it's nostalgic and fun, and I think especially the millennial designers just like are very nostalgic.
I was at the sign up booth too, and at Centurion, and like they're obsessed with, they have a cassette tape little charm that's like so speaking to our generation and my generation of like right at the tail end of cassette tapes, like before CDs were out. It's like right when I was a child making a mixtape. They have a mixtape collection. It's like, it kills me because it's like that nostalgia, just a touch of nostalgia.
It's like that comfort.
Yeah.
Gucci has this whole line that's it's inspired by a slinky. I thought it was telephone cord.
Yes.
Like, I loved it for that, and it's actually inspired by a slinky. It's futuristic like in the rhodium version, but it's actually just like very elegant and sophisticated without the rhodium and just in diamonds and gold. I actually like it better that way.
This is pretty this way too. And it's got your wavy shape too.
Mm-hmm.
So last but not least, our genderless jewelry.
Yes, and so this more than anything, it's just, I think it speaks more to how we're changing as a society and what we feel comfortable wearing, more so than the jewelry. Like today, the jewelry designers, they see trendsetters like a Harry Styles and a Shawn Mendes, and I mean now like every Gen Z boy who wears like a pearl necklace.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, by the way, my jewelry doesn't just have to be for women. Like it's for anyone who wants to wear the jewelry. And people are just, they're photographing it on men and women. The designer behind Uniform Object, he told me, he was like, because I was like, oh, do you consider your line like unisex? And he's like, I never even thought of it that way. He's like, I call it jewelry that you can share. Which I
love that.
That was really cute. And I was like, okay, you're so much younger and cooler than me. But yeah, like Gizzi Mandler, like all of her, like almost every one of her styles is like extremely unisex, and she photographs them on men a lot now too. And once you see it, you can imagine it on yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I love just the conversation. It's like changing how we talk about jewelry and why it's so important. Just like I'm like determined to get rid of the word bridal, because it's not just brides, it's wedding jewelry. It's like, we're not talking about bridal anymore, because like taking the gender part out of it, and suddenly it becomes a different conversation, and you're not alienating people just by how we're talking about it. It's not.
You are so ahead of the game, Amanda, because I've like had conversations just about working with people and not automatically saying like, so like, when is your wife getting, just not assuming that they're marrying like a man or a woman.
Yeah.
But I have not even heard somebody say, well, maybe we shouldn't use the word bridal jewelry. I think you're very like,
I'm like always against it. I don't know when it started, and I know, I'm not definitely not the first person to say it, but I just feel like it's such an important part for our industry to get rid of that language, because we have to be more inclusive in everything we do. And this trend hopefully won't be a trend, because as we talk about jewelry, it just becomes mainstream. When you start to see baseball players on the mound wearing strands of pearls, it changes the conversation about pearls being feminine, because they're no longer feminine. They're just a gorgeous piece of jewelry that anybody can wear. So love that.
State Property, they did the same thing. They just rebranded and they showed their collection in a campaign of men, and all of a sudden it's like, and the designers, it's a man and a woman, and you're like, of course. You're like, why would I have ever thought this was like for women? Like it looks incredible on men, like everything they do,
right? Just different lengths, different sizes, make sizing ability.
And then Buccier, like, talk about elevating the pearl necklace. All of their little enamel beads are enamel over gold. So they're doing us no favors in the price point.
No,
it's still just a ton of gold, but it's so playful and cute looking on. And like, I just feel like every famous young man like needs to wear this on a red carpet or on the cover of a magazine. Like, it's so pretty.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Suzanne Callan necklace too, the dog tag that could have been masculine, but it also has the diamonds and gemstones that almost feels feminine. So it's like taking out both of those and being able to, I'm wearing this, my husband would wear it, like anybody can wear it. And I love that concept. Now I'm forever going to think about it. Like when I get my husband something, it's like, can we share it? Like, I'm going to give him a gift that we can share.
Very in favor.
Yeah, right. Do things for ourselves. So that takes us to the questions. Lauren, I'm going to turn the mic over to you if you want to ask. I know some questions have popped in. So if you want to, we have about 7 minutes for questions.
Yep. Thank you both for that great discussion. As a reminder for everybody in the chat, you can type any of your questions in the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll try to get through as many as possible in the next few minutes. I'm going to start it off with a question that came in beforehand, and it actually ties in with what you guys were just talking about. As we see more examples of male celebrities wearing pearl strands, do you think it will continue to emerge as a trend in 2023?
100%.
Yeah, and I feel like what I see like when people are photographed for like big consumer magazines, like a lot of layering of jewelry on the men. So I think it will totally grow, and I think it'll be more like diamonds as well, more gemstones as well. On the SAG Awards, the actor who, sorry, I like don't know who any actors are today. When I write these stories, they're like all the celebrities are like strangers to me. But there was a man who won a SAG award for a movie, and he had the most amazing De Beers high jewelry brooch on his tux. And like they used to be like, that's not a brooch, that's like a lapel pin. And I was always like, what? Like I'm so confused. Like now we can just say like he's wearing a brooch. Like I don't know. I think it's just all really sort of like going together, and it's just going to expand from pearls.
I feel like half the time that the men have as much jewelry on as some of the women, and oftentimes more. So I love it. If we want to call it a trend, yes, it's here to stay.
Yeah. And by the way, I think we can go a few minutes over. Obviously, anyone who wants and needs to leave can leave, but I think we just to make sure we have enough time.
Absolutely.
In addition to style trends, are there any trends that are more ethically based? So sustainability, eradicating child labor, anything that you guys are seeing?
I would definitely say yes. Like for this, we were focusing on design trends. So as far as like, as consumer behavior trends, I think sustainability is a major one. And I think that right now, the most important thing I feel like that's happening in the industry is people trying to come to a consensus of what certain terms mean, because unfortunately, you know, the greenwashing of just being like, this is sustainable, and we're like, one person's sustainable is not like the next person's sustainable. I think it's all really confusing to the consumer, and a lot of brands are like reaping a lot of benefits of like using these terms, but how do we even back them up? So National Jeweler does a really good job of covering like the conversation around that. Right now, a really important thing happening is the JBC is looking for input for the FTC green guides. And it's really important for them to be able to like contribute to the green guides, which basically say how everyone in every industry can speak about words like sustainability. So it's super timely. It's a huge trend. And I think before it goes like even any further, people just have to come to an understanding of what it means so people can communicate these things better and figure out how to become more sustainable.
Yeah, I just saw a really good quote from Christina at Ethical Metalsmith talking about us almost like normalizing the fact that hopefully we're going to get to the point where it's so normal for everyone to be using sustainable products or to use Fair Mind, or, you know, all of these materials that we no longer have to use the language because everybody's doing it. It's like, wouldn't that be a dream world, right? So
yeah, where everything's traced and yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think as consumers, people are coming to expect that of us. So it's absolutely
and whatever you're
doing, even considered a trend, but something that you have to do.
And whatever you're doing, talk about it. I think that's the main point. Like, just let the consumer know, like, here's this ring, and you know that you got it from that you got the gemstone from ethical partners. Just communicate as much as you can, like as these things are being worked out about how we talk about these things.
And romancing the stories of all the good too is super important. Like we always talk about, like whether it's, you know, Anza Gems is a great example of like how they're sourcing gemstones and where they're getting it from and the people that they're helping. And so it's like, how can you find partners like that to help tell your story is something that's super important.
Great. The next question is from the chat. It is, what is the long-term durability factor for enamel? Do you guys know?
So the durability. I mean, I have antique enamel pieces.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to thickness and application. So I think the people who work with it well are probably better off than us. But I also have antique pieces. I have pieces of enamel that I wear all the time and I have zero issues with, so.
Yeah, I think people who are doing it, like actually where I find a problem is rhodium plating.
Right.
Oh my God, I have this one ring and like I've had it replated and I thought because I used a different manufacturer to replate it, maybe it'd go better, and it instantly was coming off again. But enamel, people have been using it for so long that I think people who work with it regularly have really good sources for the actual work and application.
Yeah.
So I think that is not something to worry about. Like, I mean, I've cracked an emerald before. That wasn't fun. So I mean, I don't think it's less durable than a lot of what we work with in jewelry.
Agreed.
All right, and our final question is rose gold still fashionable?
Oh. For me, it's niche. Like it's niche but relevant, but I don't see it as a trend. I really don't.
It's a really difficult metal for consumers, I feel like, for a couple of reasons. One is it's harder for skin tone, for certain skin tones. And also to layer with, you know, and to match within each other, because there's so many different colors of rose. So it's like they don't kind of all go together. But I think the way that Ashley described it is like dead on. Like there is very much a niche. It's not out of fashion by any means, but it's just a smaller market.
Yeah, I agree. But people keep it in their collections for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think there is that segment that is like, no, I look amazing in rose gold. Like I'm gonna keep wearing my rose gold.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. My next question will return on March 14th at 2 p.m. back with Amanda and Ashley. They will host a discussion on lessons from GEMS, and that will be discussing the forces behind the 2023 GEM Award honorees and nominees. Thank you all for joining us today, and the recording will be available shortly. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye.